Welcome to the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for being here. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. If you're not already, check us out on YouTube. Also, want to shout out Foolish Club Media for the partnership. What's up with these NBA conference semifinals, man? Are they on drugs or what's up? Like, what's really good with these conference finals? Or conference semifinals, I should say. A lot of really strange things happening. It's making for a really compelling, I think, conference semifinals. And the thing that I've appreciated the most so far about the NBA playoffs so far in general, even before we got here, is how few sure things that you had even going into this whole thing. And now you're in a space with these series that you have left in the semifinals where there is not a sure thing among any of the series. There is not a single series that you can point to and say, yep, that one is for sure happening. Now, I think, and I'll get to this in just a second, I think that OKC is the safest bet. You know, in the current structure right now, I would say that OKC is probably the surest thing of all the series. But you look at everything else, I don't think that there is a sure thing among the entire field. Now, you look at the first round, okay? How many sure things did you have to start these playoffs, right? I think you could say Thunder Grizzlies felt like a sure thing. Okay, and that was probably the only one in the Western Conference. You go from there, and in the East, I'd say Cavs Heat was a sure thing. And you probably say Celtics Magic was a sure thing. But across the board from there, I mean, you got a 4 or 5 that went 7 games and the 4 wins, but probably one of the more compelling series that you got. You got a 6 that beat a 3 pretty comfortably, but still there's a 6 beating a 3. You got a 7 going 7 games with a 2, beating a 2 on the road in 7 games. And then you've got a 4 beating a 5 in 5 games. I think that one was probably not as competitive as you would expect a 4 or 5, but you understand why it is that the Pacers were able to handle up on the Bucks, right? And then, of course, there's the Knicks Pistons series where the 3 beats the 6, but the 6 puts up a pretty good fight. It's a 6-game series, and it was one of the more compelling first-round series. And now we're in a spot where you can't find a single sure thing among the matchups in the semifinals, and that is what makes the thing so compelling. And it actually leads me to a fairly bold prediction that I want to make just to start this thing off. In light of the Steph Curry news and the fact that I'm recording this thing on a Thursday afternoon, just hours before the Warriors play the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 2, I'm going to go ahead and get in front of this thing and make a prediction based off of watching the Warriors over the course of 7 games. I was at four of the 7 games that they played, you know, the ones that were at Toyota Center in the first round, and have just followed them closely enough. In light of this news that Steph Curry is going to be out for at least a week or evaluated a week from the injury with the grade 1 hamstring, and which is probably going to put him out for at least 2-3 games. Certainly this one that they're playing on Thursday night. The Warriors won that game, despite the fact that Steph Curry missed a little bit more than half of it. And they, I believe, are going to win this series even without Steph Curry playing the majority of it. I got the Warriors beating the Minnesota Timberwolves in, I'm going to say, no less than 6 games. And I've got a reason. And I think they can do this for a couple of reasons. One of them is obvious. I think having Jimmy Butler as somebody who can carry a team kind of goes without saying. The whole playoff Jimmy thing, I don't think is actually overplayed just because he does seem to rise his level of play in the playoffs. And we've seen him actually carry a team and carry teams that are, I would say, similarly talented or maybe not as much as this one that he's gonna face with Minnesota. But also the key part that I would point to that I don't know if the Warriors get enough credit for because of, and I think it's for a couple of reasons, is because of Steph Curry The 3-point shot, and Draymond Green as an individually great defender. I don't know if the Warriors get enough credit for how well they play team defense historically and now. Like that's something that I think often got overlooked because Draymond Green's a great individual defender. Klay Thompson in his heyday was a really good to great individual defender. They had Andre Iguodala. They had great individual defenders, but I don't know if they got enough credit for the team defense that they played, and especially now with Draymond Green. I think as the only one left of those guys that I listed, I feel like they get a lot of credit for really for Steph and for how they for their offense and how they move guys around and how the ball's constantly moving, how guys are constantly moving and that sort of thing. And I think Draymond gets a lot of credit for his individual defense, but they don't get enough credit. I think Steve Kerr as a tactician and them as, I guess, practitioners of what they do defensively is really good. I'll point out that I understand it was the Rockets, the offensively challenged Rockets that they were playing in the first round, but they held those dudes under 90 points in 2 games in that series and then doubled back and did the same thing in game 1 of the semifinals against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have now in 8 games, in 8 playoff games now, 7 against the Rockets and the 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves so far. Again, recording this on a Thursday afternoon before they play game 2. In 8 playoff games so far, they have held their opponent now 3 times under 90 points. Again, twice that's against the offensively challenged Rockets, a young team. And then I don't know if you can expect Anthony Edwards to have as bad of a first half and for Minnesota to shoot the way that they shot the ball in this game, in game 1. But I do think that it's something to monitor and something that's not talked about enough of how well they play team defense, the Warriors, that is. And so it's because of this. I would say it's because of this and what I mentioned with Jimmy Butler, that they do have a guy. They did make the trade for a guy who can carry a team when it's like, let's say they don't have their best guy. I think Jimmy Butler is that guy, on top of the fact that the Warriors play the sort of team defense. I mean, you look back at that Houston series and how they were able to confuse Jalen Green with what they did in packing the paint and shading towards him, and what they did with their zone defense. How Houston wasn't able to figure that out. I feel like that their defense and Jimmy Butler and guys like, look, I don't know if you're going to be able to rely on Buddy Hield to lead you the way he has in these last couple of games. Like, that's the thing that I think is going to regress to the mean. But what has been consistent about the Warriors, I mentioned Jimmy Butler, I mentioned their defense. Even if it's not Buddy Hield, they have had a way. Like, they seem to find a guy. They always have that question, and it's an issue for them of not knowing on a given night who's going to be that guy, not named Steph Curry, not named Jimmy Butler, that's going to give us something. And on a given night, it can be anybody different. It's been Buddy Hield in game 7 and game 1. Who knows who's going to be in game 2? But they always seem to find that it could be Buddy Hield, it could be Brandon Podziemski, it could be Gary Payton II. I mean, like Quentin Post put up some good minutes. They got, I mean, look, the Jonathan Kuminga thing, it looks like a disaster right now. But let's not pretend like we've never seen him play well before. So, like, they've got I think a bevy of options of other guys that can step up for them. Moses Moody is another name that I would throw out there, who hasn't necessarily been impressive in the playoffs so far, but it's also somebody that has come up big for them at various points. So they got a cast of dudes that are not necessarily spectacular, but can give it to you, can give you enough, I would say, on a given night that will supplement what they're doing defensively and what Jimmy Butler is going to give you on a pretty consistent basis. So my bold prediction to start this thing off is Steph Curry, no Steph Curry. Okay, no Steph Curry, no problem for the Warriors. They're gonna still handle business against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I hate to see it because I would have loved to have seen the Rockets in this position. I would have loved to have seen that matchup. Not saying that they would have for sure been able to beat the Timberwolves, but I do like the matchup. I would have liked to, or I would let me put it this way: I would have liked to have seen the matchup and have seen them in this position. If I feel like the Warriors can beat them without Steph Curry, then surely I could give the Rockets a chance if they were fully healthy. So a little bittersweet as a Houston guy that's rooting for the Rockets, but I can acknowledge game recognized game and what the Warriors have going on both defensively and with Jimmy Butler and their other guys seeming to step up at the right moments at the right time. I got the Warriors handling business. Now, let's move over to the East real quick because that's where it's got real juicy. It's done got real juicy over there in the East. It's kind of, I'm gonna say kind of, man. It is absolutely flipped in the Eastern Conference in terms of who I thought would be representing them in the conference finals and who I thought was even possible that could represent them in the NBA finals. It is completely flipped. It wasn't even until Wednesday night where a home team actually won a game in these conference semifinals, which is part of what has made it so spectacular, so wild. But another thing that's made, or another part that's made it so spectacular and so wild, is the massive, massive, massive choke jobs that we've seen in the Eastern Conference. And I am going to start with the Cleveland Cavaliers because this one is juicy because, well, for one, let's just shout out Tyrese Halliburton for rebounding his own free throw miss and being able to take it out, set it up, and just knock down a clutch, just ballsy shot to win the game in game two and put the Indiana Pacers up 2-0 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the obvious caveat with Cleveland is that they have not been healthy. Darius Garland has been questionable and missed like the last 4 games. They were without Hunter. They were without Evan Mobley. And it turns out that even Donovan Mitchell is out there playing hurt, playing with a calf strain. Now, this is the juicy part. And this is just me trying to read between the lines. I don't know if this is going to be me seem like I'm trying to be messy, but and maybe if it's somebody that's more connected to Cleveland and is following this more closely can hit me up and let me know if I'm off on this. But does it seem like there's a little discord or a little let's say friction, if you will, about who's playing and who's not and how hurt everybody is for Cleveland? Because the way it seems to me is that these guys that they got are out here with pain tolerance injuries. The guys that they got out there, the various injuries between Hunter, between Mobley, between Garland, and who else? Who else am I? And I'm missing at least somebody else. But everybody out there, we're talking about somebody with a pain tolerance issue. And there you got Donovan Mitchell, leader of the team, apparently is playing with a calf strain. Won't really talk about it, won't really say much about it, but is apparently playing with a calf strain. Also, um, apparently a pain tolerance issue. You got one dude playing through pain, and you got a crew of other dudes not playing through pain. Meanwhile, you going down to giving up significant leads and going down 0-2 at home to the Indiana Pacers. Watching as bystanders as this happens. Am I am I off here? Like just kind of read the tea leaves a little bit. If you if you follow this thing and see if there's not a little bit of resentment of who's playing and who's not and how much they should be playing. But relative to the game though, what a massive choke job. What a massive choke job this was, man. I mean, Donovan Mitchell played out of his mind for the majority of this game, right? You had others that played out of their mind for the majority of this game. And for them to, give up this lead, considering what they had. I mean, look, Max Strus had a playoff career high 23 points, but he throws that terrible inbounds pass, and they're up. What are they up 3 points with 25 seconds left to go? They were up 7 in the final minute, right? And they coughed this thing up. Can't box out. Can't box out on a miss on a free throw shooter, and just really kind of coughed this thing up. And for a top seed, for a supposed number one seed, this feels like to me the biggest choke job so far. And there are others who have cases because we've seen some wild comebacks and some wild endings in here. But to me, the Cavs are the biggest choke job so far. I mean, and it's the simple things. It's the allowing the offensive rebounds and just not being able to close out a game, simply close out a game. That's the part that makes you go back to the thought of the Cavs being like this fraudulent, I'm somebody that resented this, that the Cavs were some kind of fraudulent top seed and that you couldn't quite trust them. And I think Donovan Mitchell sometimes gets some unfair criticism as a superstar. Like, is this a guy that can be the best player on a championship team? I think he's showing you that he clearly can. However, massive choke job. Massive choke job. I'm talking about not boxing out. He's one of the ones. One of the guys that missed a box out and got dunked on. It happened. So the Cavs for me, biggest choke job so far. And I'm starting to look at the Indiana Pacers and think, okay, this has been a fun, cute story throughout the year, but forgive me for not taking you seriously enough. Like when they had the chance about Halliburton being overrated out there in Cleveland, and whoa, you want to talk about, well, wait a minute, I didn't even think about that. You want to talk about one of the all-time, like, let me own you freezing cold takes, like to like bear out on live television. The Cleveland crowd yelling overrated to Tyrese Halliburton and him ending the night in the way that he did. Yo, man, that is it. That is the type of shit I'm here for. But for me, the biggest choke job, and I got to start looking at the Pacers as in a way that I should have been looking at them the entire time when I was just trying to sort of patronize them as a cute story, as a cool story. But no, as a team in an Eastern Conference that has some imperfections, they are one of the better teams and have been throughout the season, have been throughout the playoffs, and in Tyrese Halliburton, not overrated. A guy that you can lean on in the final moments. Who can you give the ball to and win you the game in the end? Um, I think Aaron Neesmith is somebody that needs some recognition as well, and I'm pretty sure, like I'm saying, needs some recognition, like the NBA community at large, and certainly Pacers fans aren't already doing this. But I mean, this is what they are playing. What championship level basketball looks like in ways that the Cavs clearly are not. Which brings me to the next choke job and to the other Eastern Conference semifinal series that has caught everybody's attention. And we're talking about massive choke jobs, and maybe the Cavs being the biggest one so far is a hot take, because how about them Celtics? How about them Celtics giving up massive leads in back-to-back games? The 20-point leads in back-to-back games. Is that accurate? Like, and of course, game one was one where you could chalk it up to, okay, well, they're a great 3-point shooting team. They shoot a lot of threes. They missed a lot of threes, and that's not going to happen again. And that was the reason why a big reason why they lost, is because the Celtics, that is because they shot themselves out of the game. I think you could have made that argument after game one. What about after game two? What about after game two when the Knicks just kind of walked them boys down, man? Walked them boys down and really kind of took their chain. And so now what you have here in the last two series that I talked about is in the Eastern Conference, the lower seeds now have the 2-0 lead going home. And now clearly have to be favored to win those series. And look, I'm picking them both to do so. Like here's how I look at and honestly, I'm already talked about the Cavs Pacers thing. I don't believe in the Cavs. I don't believe that they have the health and therefore not being whole. I don't think they got the winning formula to beat a team that actually has their shit together like the Pacers do. So I think that this is, Pacers are going to win that series. With this Knicks Celtics thing, whoa, whoa, because this was one of the ones that I would have said was a sure thing going into the thing, right? And that's not with any disrespect to the Knicks, but really me giving more respect to, I think, the Celtics. And I understand that you've had like what 4 or 5 of the last NBA champions to lose in the semifinals, and the Celtics look like they're about to add to that streak, or like they definitely could. But I was giving them a little bit more respect in that, just because I thought that they are just such a well-rounded and deep team and talented team that just nothing about what the Celtics did last year and what they've done this year is fake to me, or at least I thought. But that's me not giving enough credit to the Knicks and what they have. And I don't know if I was blindsided to this because I got a lot of respect for Jalen Brunson. Have since he was with the Mavs. Did not necessarily think he was this kind of great, this kind of good. But like I've been following and I've watched and I've been impressed enough to be in a space where I think like I don't discount Jalen Brunson as somebody that could be the best player on a championship team. But I think it's easy to do that when the guy is like 6'1", and you haven't seen anybody do that at that size since like Isaiah Thomas, right? Like I know Iverson's Sixers went to the finals, didn't win, but you haven't seen somebody be the best player on a team like no taller than 6'1", 6'2", um, since the early '90s, since the late '80s, early '90s when Isaiah Thomas did it with the Pistons, and so so it feels like in a lot of ways an unattainable goal. You might look at Steph Curry as an example as somebody who's 6'3", and you don't view him as a big guy, but he's still 6'3", still taller than 6'1", or whatever it is that Jalen Brunson is. And so like, but that's like just real lazy, and I'm pointing it out to say like I've watched enough to know a lot better than that. But even still, I think I just gave maybe the Celtics too much credit and the Knicks not quite enough. But man, and I'm mentioning Jalen Brunson, but let's point out Josh Hart as like the do-it-all Swiss Army knife that I think has been the difference, major difference in this series so far. But look, Mikal Bridges and those 14 points in the fourth quarter after not having a single point, and like seems like a quiet enough dude that's easy to discount. You kind of remember like, oh, Mikal Bridges hasn't done anything all game, and then he goes and scores like he goes on like a 7-0 run on his own, like on his very own, like by himself. You're like, oh, wait a minute, that's right, Mikal Bridges is out there, and that matters. That's a real thing. And so between Jalen Brunson and obviously Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, like as probably their three best players, and then Josh Hart as just like this do it all, like rise to the occasion, live for the moment type of dude. Like they have the type of team that I think could absolutely win an NBA title. And what's wild is I did not think this for a second going into the playoffs. And now, for the first time in more than 30 years, I'm having to consider the possibility that the Knicks could win the NBA championship. And how wild would that be? How great would that be? I think NBA conversation, the NBA community, obviously for Knicks fans and for New York City, it would be like a monstrous kind of type of event and occasion. I could just imagine what the parade might look like. But I just mean like this idea that the Knicks for most of our lifetimes now, because we're in 2025 and it's been hell 50 years or more since they won a championship. And now more than 30 since you probably really considered and believed that they actually could, right? They went to game 7 in 1994 against the Rockets. The Rockets won. Now, you'd have to say that they could have won the 7th game. I don't know if you believed in them or not. I was young enough to not really necessarily have a good enough, expert enough opinion, and vaguely remember it. But I don't think that anybody's been able to give them a legitimate chance. I don't think they had a legitimate chance in '99 against the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know if they've had a legitimate chance at a title in more than 30 years, and it looks like they actually do. Like, think about it. It's such a gettable league. Going back to my earlier point, where there's no given, there is no sure thing, and the Knicks are firmly planted among the team, like the Pacers, a team that could absolutely, like the randomness of it right now. They're a team that could absolutely win the NBA title. I love this about the NBA playoffs. I love that after years of dynasties and or eras of dynasties or eras of sure things. Like, you think about it, LeBron James was in the finals for what, 9 years. So it was like, well, okay, whatever team LeBron is on, then he was in the East forever. Whatever team LeBron is on, they go into the finals. All right. Oh, okay, this Warriors thing is a thing. Okay, they go into the finals. The last several years, man, the randomness of, hey, the champion could come out of nowhere. It could be anybody, man. It could be the Bucks. It could be the Warriors again in some weird new iteration of the Warriors. It could be the Celtics. It could be the Denver Nuggets. Like, I mean, it. And now I think even more so than any of these previous years that I just rattled out, that I just rattled off, this is an even more gettable year. As gettable of a year as the Knicks, I think, will find. Certainly that there's been before. So, what an ideal scenario for the New York Knicks to go up 2-0 at Boston, going back to the Garden. Like, what do you like? How do y'all think about this? Like, to me, I'm giving I'm giving both of these teams enough respect to say, just ahead of time, to call it out here, that they're going to split these games at the Garden, right? Like, I don't have it in me to say that the champion Boston Celtics, the defending champion Boston Celtics, are about to go to the Garden and get swept. I cannot put that on them. I do not believe that that's going to happen. Although what we've seen from them in these first couple of games, in allowing these leads to collapse in the way that they have, has not looked like championship caliber and championship level basketball. I don't think that they're going to lose both of these games, but I gotta figure that the Knicks are going to at least win one of these games at the Garden. And as well as they've played down the stretch, and as well structured of a team as they are, as I laid it out a moment ago, I mean, I got a tough time seeing either one of these teams winning both of these games. I feel like this is a prime split situation, which means you're coming back to Boston with the Knicks up 3-1. And then that's when we're going to see what this championship medal is about. That's when we're going to see what this thing is about. You like to think that the that the Celtics are going to fight back and force the thing to go back to the Garden for a game 6, but then what does that look like? Like, I think the Knicks are built the right way. I think they got the superstar. I think they got the complementary stars, and I would put Bridges in there. Like, Bridges is maybe somebody that you would look at as more of a role player. Man, them 14 points that he scored in the fourth quarter was like, you know, like borderline star type of stuff, Chris Middleton type of stuff, right? So like that level of player type of stuff. So between him and then Towns and Jalen Brunson, and forget, just don't be lazy and forget about the whole 6'1" thing. The dude plays like he's 6'5". Like him being 6'1" doesn't really stand out, other than the fact that you can just look out there and tell that he's 6'1". But the way he plays, I mean, the way he gets to his spots, how controlled he is, how smart he is. I mean, he is like, if you were to ask me who's the best player in this series, I'd probably still say Jason Tatum. But I just don't feel like the gap between what you're getting from Jason Tatum in terms of quality, like what Tatum is as a best player on the team, and what Jalen Brunson is as the best player on your team. Like, I think it's a negligible difference. But don't think it's a significant difference at all. Could the Knicks win the NBA title? What say you? I think they could definitely go. I got a tough time saying that I think that they could win, because those teams in the West, I think, are so damn good. But damn, man, the Knicks like that. I cannot look again. I gave the Warriors credit earlier in this podcast and said that I feel like they're going to win their series. I don't even want to be the one either that give the Knicks more credit than I want to, right? Or than that's necessary. But in another instance of game recognizing game, I feel like that this is a team that could win the NBA title. And it leads me to the last and final series. And I left them for last because, you know, you don't want to bury the lead. And, in this case, you don't want to say the best for last. You want to say the worst for last. The most milk toast for last. I feel like OKC is the surest thing. And I love this series. I love how Denver has responded after the odd firing of Malone and their general manager. Like, they fired the guys in charge there, and to me, the message in there when you do that is like, kind of like, we're giving up. Like, it didn't feel, and they positioned it this way. They positioned it as like a last ditch effort to save things, but that's not what it feels like you do to save things. Like, that didn't make sense to me, really. So I thought they were kind of quitting. And obviously players don't tend to quit. Like, players got legacies on the line and want to win and are competitive and all of that. But like, just the way that they had, like, winning that series against the Clippers, who I thought had an argument as the toughest out, as a lower seed of any lower seed in all of the playoffs. Like, they would be the toughest team to get out, and to do that. The Aaron Gordon thing, I know throughout this run, their other guy has been Jamal Murray, but Aaron Gordon is maybe the one that gets, I'm not going to even say overlooked, because everybody knows that Aaron Gordon's a good player. But as like the connector, and maybe even, I would say, more accurately, like kind of the heart and soul of their team, I don't know if I understood or appreciated that as much until like kind of following them a little bit closer this year. And of course, just I say I'm following them closer. I don't know if it's that as much as it is that Aaron Gordon has had some things happen. And a few people on that team have just had some interesting individual stories. Like Aaron Gordon, of course, losing his brother. And he had his nephews up there at one of those press conferences pretty recently. And then having these two so memorable game winning plays. The tip in against the Clippers, that was one. Like the tip dunk at the end, that was one. Like, I don't know if we've ever seen anything quite like that to end a playoff game. And then, Russell Westbrook finding him on the missed Chet Holmgren free throws, and making the right basketball play and finding him for the three. Those are memorable plays. I don't think anybody's gonna forget those. And so for him to have those moments, that's been special. Michael Porter Jr. I wasn't as familiar with drop foot until Michael Porter Jr. apparently got it, and is out there with basically one foot. Like if you watch Michael Porter Jr., apparently he's out there with 1 foot and 1 shoulder. You know, you want to talk about playing through injury, playing hurt, or playing in discomfort, pain management, managing the pain, tolerating the pain. Michael Porter Jr. does not look comfortable out there, and he's playing. You know, like you got 2 teams out there. Well, I guess really 3 if you count Golden State. Yeah, so you got 3 teams out there that are champions, unless I'm missing somebody. On the east side, you got Boston, and then on the west, you got Denver and the Warriors, teams that have won championships. And of course, Steph is out for the next week, but you know, Draymond's still there, Steve Kerr's still there. There are a couple of players that are there that are with Gary Payton the second. There are players that have won championship with them. Champions on both sides, on all sides. The one team that's not playing like a champion to me or playing championship level basketball is the Celtics. And I think the one team that hasn't won a title that's playing the most like a champion is OKC. I think the Knicks are right behind them. The Pacers are right there. Okay. Knicks and Pacers, which is going to make for a fascinating conference finals that nobody predicted. But OKC to me is the surest thing. I thought that they should have won the first game. Chet missing those free throws was obviously unfortunate for them. But I thought they kind of overthought things and fouling while they were ahead, and Denver making them pay and making those free throws. Like I think that was an issue that if they're being honest about it, they could go back. Maybe they would have played for as good a defense as they normally play, as good of a defensive of a team as they are. I don't think that was the way to go. They kind of outsmarted themselves in game one, and of course, credit to the Nuggets making that play at the end of the game. Of course, with Aaron Gordon in that shot. But to me, and then you could argue, and I think some people would, that maybe Denver let their foot off the gas a little bit in game 2 since they already took care of business and came in there and split one already. But you know, and so maybe game 2 isn't as indicative of the gap between the 2 teams, given how much and how badly Oklahoma City blew them out. But I do think it is based on it is pretty clear on both games that Oklahoma City is obviously the better team. I'm not breaking news there. So this to me is the surest thing. Oklahoma City loses the series. That would be the biggest surprise out of all of them, outside of the fact that we're just already surprised to be where we are. Like, I don't want to lose sight of how incredible and how shocking it is that the Celtics went down 0-2 at home and that the Cavs went down 0-2 at home against the Knicks and the Pacers, respectively. So I'm fascinated by what's going on in these semifinals. This is a podcast really based on Houston. And I try to stay true to that, but if I'm being real with you beyond that, this is a podcast based on your boy. This is a podcast based on me. And so we're gonna cover things that I'm really interested in, talk about the things that y'all are really interested in, so that we can let them know. But I figured the podcast is the best when I'm passionate about the subject matter, and I'm super passionate about these conference semifinals because there ain't no sure things. Every night is a movie, and it's compelling. No lead is safe, and it's just fun as hell to watch, man. So hit me up. Make sure you are subscribed to the B Block Podcast, again, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube, and also Foolish Club Media is the gang. Until next time, y'all be good. You know how he do it. Beast guy from Hiram Clark, do it. Beast guy from Hiram Clark, Beast guy from Hiram Clark, Beast guy from Hiram Clark, Beast guy from Hiram Clark.